Eschaeology Podcast. Many thanks to Resonix Sound Solutions for making this podcast a reality. There's a link in the show notes, but you can find out more about Resonix sound treatments, along with tons of other info, resources, and products at resonixsoundsolutions.com. Today we have Travis Chen with IASCA. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you.
Not planned or anything, but I was just looking back. It looks like it was somewhat ironically here, being that we have Mike Myers here as well. Hi, Mike.
Hello.
So, almost exactly 4 years ago was the last time we sat down with Travis. You and I actually interviewed during the Meet and Tweak event that we did at Mike's Sound Factory, like in November, within a week of now in 2020, you know, when we were much more hopeful about life in general. And I think that was almost exactly a year after you had kind of officially taken over IASCA in 2019. Obviously, we've had the entire, everything has kind of taken lots of twists and turns, and, you know, I guess kind of start there. I mean, compared to, and I didn't go back and listen. I'm not going to sit here and like pinpoint anything that was said then compared to now, because who knows? What's your overall feeling as far as, you know, IASCA and movement growth, whatever kind of what your goals were or what your expectations were with IASCA, you know, over the past, I guess, 4 to 5 years since you've taken over, and, you know, kind of what's happened expectedly, unexpectedly. I mean, is there anything that comes to mind there on your end?
Yeah, so I don't remember either what we talked about 4 years ago.
Weird.
You know, yeah. No, it was one of those times where it was, you know, we were just in the middle of COVID and just like didn't know what the heck was going on.
Right.
I think when I initially had taken over IASCA, it was just more of kind of continuing the legacy, sort of,
right,
of keeping it going, just kind of making sure that we were just kind of cruising along, and it was like within like a month of me taking over with
everything COVID.
Yeah, it's like, start over. Yeah, so it pretty much the first 2 years just kind of prolonged everything, and it was kind of like this, okay, how do we not necessarily start over, but how do we get events rolling again, you know, with this kind of new way that the world has become. So it's been kind of a weird 4 years. I don't really try to gauge myself as to where we are compared to like before my time.
Sure. No.
Because I mean, the world has completely changed.
Yes.
Yeah. So just kind of cruising along and taking things as they come along, you know, making sure I take full advantage of opportunities that I have and follow the trends. You know, it's kind of funny that nowadays things change fast, like way faster than they have in the past.
People tend to expect things in a much more gratuitous fashion, it seems, when the way social media cruises now, even compared to, you know, 10 years ago, like you kind of still found out about things kind of after the fact on social media. Now it seems like a lot of discussions and stuff like that drives change ahead of time going into things, and it's tough to stay ahead of that curve. But yeah, I think, you know, what you're saying, because you were obviously involved with IASCA at a pretty heavy level prior to really even the thought of taking over. And also to remind everybody, you know, you still have a day job and everything else. This is still a passion project alongside it to keep, like you said, keep the legacy alive. So I think some people's expectations of any organization, especially at least any organization in the United States, like, you know, I don't know if, you know, anybody that is just doing this as a career, and you know, especially on the sound quality side,
not to my knowledge anyway.
Yeah.
But I think as far as, I mean, you've kept things going as far as the finals goes. And of course, you're never going to, make everybody happy when it comes to that. But, also I think everybody's, seems overall on the whole on the curve. I mean, we've had lots of discussions over the past month since finals with a lot of different people. And it seems for the people, and I've always gauged things based on the people who are there. I think everybody, has had majority, a positive outlook on things. Obviously, there's always things to do differently or whatever. But maybe, starting this most recent finals, you are probably the most key person in that. And this is the second year now in Alabama. But what's your overall feelings on how things went and kind of goals going forward as far as finals goes?
So, with everything that I do, I always think, what are the ways to improve? I don't always say things were like the best because I'm always like, well, you can always do better.
Right. Right.
Sure, yeah.
We wouldn't be doing this if we could just, we're happy with okay.
Right. So, so usually like right after, I'm always taking notes of, oh, we could have done it this way. We could have done it that way. Overall, I'd say it went fairly well. There weren't any major hiccups or any massive problems, that really came about. I will say that the car show part that we were trying to add, I was disappointed in kind of how it turned out, but there were a lot of, I don't know how to put it, but it basically got to a really slow start of trying to get it out there. So the expectation kind of wasn't really there either. So that's why it's kind of like, it's not really that big of a disappointment because there wasn't really expecting to be, huge. So
it wasn't something that was taken away from the event that had been there prior anyway, because it was kind of just a hope of adding something that didn't get added. So the people who were there were probably much like, oh, well, so what?
Yeah. And, taking from that, we've figured out some things of how can we be better at getting that going.
Okay.
So we're already talking about, okay, we really need to hit the ground running like now of promoting that part of the show.
Right.
And that's more of, it was like filler space. We've got all this space, in these halls, and it's like, what can we do with it?
Sure.
So that was one of the options. And so we'll give it one more shot and see how it goes. Yeah.
It seems like from the outside perspective, you had gotten a little more traction as far as, like I know Mike and Sound Factory were there as vendors, and it seems like you did a good job at reaching out and getting the people who were going to be involved and showing and participating from a different brands levels, whether that's like a shop or brand or whatever, but that seemed to pick up a little bit. And so I think is there any, are you mainly focusing on a continuation of things then for next? I know probably nothing's solidified, nothing that you're ready to announce, but as far as, are you mostly looking at a continuation of what things have kind of the trajectory of how things have been going in that regard?
Right. Yeah. Pretty much, unless there was something that was major that needed to be changed, we just figured, it was a great venue, it checks off a lot of the boxes, right? There's like a couple things that could have been better. Like, I know everybody talks about the geography, but everybody wants it in their own backyard. So
right.
Kind of like, but this one really it has close restaurants, close hotels. It's clean. It's safe. We have security. We have, on-site staff that is there like almost 24 hours, I think. We've got overnight security. So, but we've got staff that just helps us, all the time. So, it's just a great venue. Yeah. So as we go through this year, as I'm traveling to different places for different shows and stuff, I'll still keep my eye out for if there's other options.
Right.
but it probably, if there would be a major change, it would probably come probably in 2026.
Right.
Got it.
Because, I don't want to try and make a major change kind of during mid-season for something like finals, even though we used to
Do it all
kind
the
of
time.
make our, yeah. Yeah, but it'll be really nice for people to know, hey, I've got 9-10 months to plan
Yeah.
for this finals event, and then maybe next year as we wrap up, we're like, okay, let's use the next 30 days. Do we want to continue again, or do we want to go somewhere else or do something different?
Yeah.
And give the competitors another 9 to 10 months to plan their travel.
I think that type of continuity is important to help grow events such as this, so one of the reasons why, SVR is such a huge and legendary event along with Aggie Land, because you kind of already know where it's going to be every single year and what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and same with Louisville. I think a lot of, it was a good time, leading into like 2019. I mean, there was a lot of events, there was a lot going on, like there was a lot of excitement at the time, but also we were into the 4th or 5th year of being in Louisville at that point. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think there was some expectation from people that, hey, it's going to be in Louisville next year, and then you plan to make the trip or you don't. I mean, we have people from the West, a fair amount of people from the West Coast. They're 18 and 19 both, having, again, it's one of those things where, hey, yes, everybody would like it, and Travis, I mean, I think one of the discussions we've had in the past, and one of the things I kind of learned from you on how you look at things as far as that goes is not just a geographic center, but more of a dynamic center based on the core of your membership and the people who are actually qualified to be at finals.
Right.
Because it's one of those things where, okay, well, you can move the whole thing over here for these 5 people you might gain here, but you might lose 15, 20 people over here, just based on
Right.
moving that around based on where the events are, based on where people are qualifying, everything else. It's a little tougher now because I think we have more participation on the West Coast than maybe we have historically. And of course we've, attempted the West Coast, East Coast finals, remote thing and all that, which, with sound quality is a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I mean, I think that less important, obviously, like you said, the venue has worked out. You have history there. You know what to expect there now. People can kind of get more of an idea of what they're going to count on for accommodations, where they're going to stay, how they're going to get back and forth. Like all that stuff becomes less part of the planning for both you, the orgs, and the competitors when it comes to that. And again, I think just having that consistency, regardless of where it is, gets you where you gain traction. And I would say, I mean, it seems by the numbers from the outside, this past finals, numbers wise, looked bigger probably than it has been since before COVID, right?
Yeah. I think I'm not 100% sure on the competitor count, but I know spectator count's up.
Yeah.
But there was some of that focus of, hey, we want it to be more than just the competitors. So, we've kept it as free admission. And that was part of trying to get more of the manufacturer support.
Yes.
Was to try to bring them in and just get more spectators. We tried to bring in some more locals. We got the local Tent World to come out for one of the days.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then, it's being there multiple years, we learn more and more about the venue and more about the area. So it's like now going back one more year, we can use that to, maybe gain more traction of getting more of the local involvement.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So there's a bunch of things that we could benefit from just by going back to Birmingham.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, any other questions on finals?
No, I mean, I think that's a pretty wise move, the continuation in the same location for a while. That way, people kind of know what to expect. So it's easier to grow that way, I think.
What about Surf City? I know that's always been a big core event of yours, and has gone along with IASCA. Is that pretty much continuing as it has been, or is there any changes there in the future?
Nope, everything's the same. We even already had the date solidified when we were at the event last year.
Okay.
So it's I think it's August 23rd and 24th.
Okay.
Again. So
nice.
Yeah.
Same old, same old.
Yeah.
Rules. I know there's been some, changes over the past. Well, I guess in 24 rules, there were some pretty hefty changes there, and we've kind of delved into some of that in a prior podcast with Harry. But maybe some perspective from your side. There hasn't, been a ton of, I guess, for lack of a better word, explanation along the way, as far as some of the intent behind things. And obviously you've been doing this a long time. We've worked together on a lot of stuff and everything else, and I know it's I know where your intent on things is, just by knowing how you do things for the most part. But as far as for the people out there considering IASCA or looking at things or what have you, like, I guess how can the competitors know how to better participate with what IASCA's goals are in terms of competitor involvement, as far as things like having SPL included in sound quality, which hasn't, it's not unheard of in IASCA, obviously, because that has always been an integral, having install 2-seat, SPL, all these things have all been integral parts of IASCA's sound quality challenge over the years, even to, not terribly long ago, at least a little over a decade maybe. But for a lot of the competitors coming up in the past, again, in about that time period in the past decade or so, they have not been accustomed to those things being together, and most of the orgs have kind of split stuff apart over the past couple decades. So I guess bringing that back together has ruffled some feathers, I would say, to a certain extent. Also, it's not in all the classes. I mean, to be clear, it's not like to compete in IASCA you must do these things. It's in a kind of a certain focused group of the categories that that you can kind of elect into. But I guess that's kind of where and I'm kind of giving a long preamble here, but I just want to be kind of clear on where I'm coming from and the intent on this. But like I guess back in the day, not that long ago, but those kinds of things were kind of a opt into when you did the Triple Crown. So you had your sound quality, then you also did install, then you also did 2-seat or SPL RTA. That was kind of what made the Triple Crown. And now that's been kind of put into classes or categories to do those things instead. So if you're in Pro 3, for example, that's what you do, or if you're in Expert or what have you. So I guess if it's possible to kind of step through some of the intent behind that, what IASCA's goals is with taking those steps, as far as how it feels that will improve competition and IASCA's position in competition, and also some of the move in taking it from being an opt-in Triple Crown type of thing into part of the categories.
Yeah, so I think it was last year, we had decided to drop the Triple Crown. Triple Crown kind of evolved a little bit over the past couple of years, with the scoring and what you had to do. I think eventually the last year or two, we didn't do RTA and SPL. And I think part of that was more of the difficulty of bringing that audio control unit, and trying to keep that, maintained.
Right.
So we had changed up Triple Crown for that over the years. And then expert just kind of became this, broken out into different parts, right? And just like all the other classes where you had 1 seat, 2 seat, and then you had install separately. So, really just, was just like a whole bunch of like trophies and a whole bunch of like, oh, you're a winner for this, but this person's a winner for that. So, okay, so who's really like
who's
the best,
the actual expert
right?
here? Yeah,
Right. And so, what we decided to do for 24 was, okay, well, let's just kind of scratch Triple Crown and let's make expert kind of evolve to be what that expert Triple Crown was. Because that really is, best of the best of doing everything. So we did that. Of course, we didn't do the RTA because we just didn't think that we had like the proper RTA software to really do it. We kept hearing, well, this one isn't right. This one doesn't do this and that. So we're like, okay, well, we know that we're always going to have this term lab for SPL. So we could do SPL.
right.
Yeah. And then just offering it up in the upper 2 classes because, we take away 2 Triple Crown classes. Well, we make the top 2 classes basically be those Triple Crown classes.
Okay.
So that was the idea behind that. And that was kind of like, if we were going to make some massive change, that was it. We didn't want to make too big of changes anywhere else. It's, for the most part, the scoring is pretty solid. There might be tweaks that we might do here and there, like we took out sound linearity, but we kept the loud linearity and stuck it into the sound. Tonal accuracy section, right? So we still kept part of it. So we were doing a couple minor things here and there. So, as we're looking at 25 rules, which is about to be ready, it might be ready by the time you put the podcast out live. But, of course, you make these major changes. You kind of see what happens. You hope that it can at least last for 2 years so you can, get, I say, 2 years worth of data, because I'm a data guy.
Sure.
To see if it actually worked. Sometimes you get some clues a little early on that you might need to tweak that even more. So we're probably going to have some tweaks in those upper classes a little bit. And, some of it came out from stuff that we saw at finals, and of course we're listening to all the people talking around us. So, our changes are just about done. I think just need to look it over a few more times, and we'll have some new rules that I think people will like.
How's the feedback on the music been? I know, IASCA's had its own disc for quite a while, and then obviously the most recent one was done not so recent now. It feels like it was recent, but it really wasn't. And going to, more of a I guess, open source style, music playlist. And then also recently teaming up with Qobuz to have, a featured playlist on that service as well, which I mean, that's awesome. I've always been a huge proponent of Qobuz. I think they have pretty much the highest quality setup out there with some really, smart people leading it up. Even if it's not as popular as some of the others, I mean, they do a fantastic job. So, I mean, I applaud that move. But how's the feedback been on that? I mean, is it been easier than expected, more difficult than expected, just what you expected? Like, I assume, has it been an overall positive move on your part, going from having a disc to having more of the open style playlist?
Yeah, so moving away from the disc, obviously that was a positive move because nobody has CD players. So,
Step one.
so that was a much needed change.
Thanks for the air freshener and the coaster.
Yeah, and so that needed to be changed. And then we had hopped into this. Okay, we're gonna try it out with the MP3s and or whatever it was, iTunes and Amazon.
Right.
Going that direction, that was a good, I'll say, trial way of getting the music available to people and getting us to learn, okay, we want to still have a set track list for the full season, right? And
Right.
so it's kind of like, okay, what do we do? How do we find the music? How do we get it out there? So 2024 was kind of more of that trial of, okay, let's put it on the website, and it seemed to have worked. Making sure people had it. Some people didn't have the right ones, and eventually, we had gotten them to get the right tracks on there.
That's the hard part.
So, yeah. And so that was more of a learning experience for everyone. And I think everyone's got it now, right? And so I got connected with Cobuzz, and the guy that I connected with has history of, I guess he was an IASCA judge back like early 90s or 89 or something. So he knew about us. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And so because it was kind of late in the season, we just wanted to make sure that we at least didn't change too much, So we tried to keep most of the same songs just for now, so that people would get more accustomed to using Cobuzz, right? Or going that other route, even though they can still, get it through iTunes or Amazon and still do it that way. So that, I think, seems to have worked. It's still fairly new, like we just kind of introduced it at finals. But the benefit for us being with Cobuzz is, like, I'm listening to new music and I'm already finding tracks that we might want to use for the next season, right? It's for 2026. I'm like, this is like really cool because it's like a full library and we don't have to worry about getting rights or anything because it's right there.
Right.
So yeah. So that's what I think the outcome, it's pretty positive going that route. Hopefully everybody sees that, as we move forward, that they'll see, oh, okay, I see, like, now using Cobuzz, IASCA is able to get, more, I'll say, up-to-date tracks, because I know ours are pretty old, right? So, yeah.
Well, and another benefit, it looks like you can, basically buy and download the tracks from there, and not just only have to stream it or whatever. So that's a pretty cool feature too of the Cobuzz site.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you don't want to have the subscription and you're just wanting the tracks for IASCA purposes, then you can do that as well. So it's a little more durable that way versus, because I know a lot of people are kind of subscriptioned out. It's like, well,
yeah. So that's a kind of a cool thing, because some of the others, like Tidal or something, you don't really have a way to download and keep the song, So that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
I know there's a couple, events that are a little newer on the horizon, in working with home audio events, and obviously we've discussed it here, and where Travis and I have been working together on the Florida Audio Expo, and then you're also working with I assume Mark Freed over at Expona on doing that as well. What's some of the I know I actually just saw a marketing email from Expona earlier this week announcing it as well. I know they're kind of featuring that as one of their bullet points, to kind of ironically have the home audio, market the home audio to a bigger group by having the car audio there. And then also at the, obviously our goal from this end is to be able to reach a new audience with the home audio people from the car audio side. But it seems to be kind of more of a overarching thing now with IASCA as far as that goes. Has that just been kind of something that's kind of been happenstance, or is there more? Do you see more evolving there as far as with the home audio crowd?
Well, hopefully we get, we can get more consumers on the car audio end. As I've been talking with them, with Expona, it sounded like that's something that the home audio consumers at the shows were kind of asking about.
Okay.
I don't know to what extent.
Right.
I just know that that's what they told me. So I think being there, they are using us as a way to get more vehicles involved, right?
Yeah.
So they know that we have the high end gear, so it just makes sense to have us there. So it's not so much as trying to find out who the winner is or who the best sounding is, as it is getting the equipment, the car audio equipment there so that they can listen to it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Kind of like the sound rooms that they do,
Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like every car is going to be kind of like their own like demo room. And that's why like the Axpona event is more titled as a car audio showcase rather than a competition.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And at Axpona, that's going to be indoors as well, right? As far as for the cars?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Is it going to be part of like where a main show floor area is, or is it going to be its own thing that people come to, or how is that going to be? Do you know what the flow is going to be like?
So I know part of the layout. I don't have the full layout of the full property, but we will have our own hall. So there'll be an entrance for us. I'm pretty sure that we're right with the show right there. So we're just like another, like another room, kind of like SEMA has, North Hall, Central Hall. So I think we're just we're just like the adjoining hall.
Nice.
There.
Nice. That'd be exciting. So, being able to have that and have that back and forth and kind of learn the way forward there. I think that's pretty cool. And having it indoors there as well, where, it's kind of part of it, and hopefully get people in and listening, and a lot more opportunity too for brand involvement with car audio and, what we're doing in general. And IASCA is definitely the premier brand, for lack of a better word, to be able to do that. And as far as that goes, just because with the time period that it's been doing it, and IASCA has always been more on that, brand marketing centric focus with the industry. So no, I think there's a lot of cool opportunity there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of places to grow it too, because there's quite a few of these home audio shows.
Mm-hmm.
You got like Capital Audio Fest, and I think they've got one in Texas. So there's quite a few of them.
Yeah. So it's really just trying to get in there, trying to get our feet wet, see how we can get it done. And, maybe the first year might not be the best, but, you just keep growing and getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure just like anything, the first one isn't the home run you want, but if you keep at it, it'll grow into what you need it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking through this website that shows a bunch of different home audio shows. They've got one called The Show in Southern California, CEDIA. They've got quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Made me think of it at the beginning here, since we had last done this at the meet and tweak in Knoxville. But as far as like training events, as far as for competitors or people who want to judge an IASCA or just learn more about how the judging is done in that, who might be newer coming into it, is there any plans as far as the upcoming season as far as that goes?
Yeah, so I know we start off in January with Jeremy Price has like a competitor training type event down in Texas.
Oh yeah,
that he's putting on with multiple organizations too. So that would be a good one for competitors. And then we have a judges training in March, beginning of March,
okay.
Up at Genesis Car Audio with John Centers.
Okay, yeah.
Up there. Yep. So that information's on the website. And then I think from there, we're just going to kind of, set them up as we go, as people are asking for them. I think that's kind of what happened last year. We had one, we did one up at Genesis. Last summer, we did one in California in January earlier this year.
Yeah, that was
yeah,
part of Richard's thing he had going on over here, I think.
yeah, and then I can't remember if Keith did one up in the Northeast, but we can always set them up. They're not too difficult to set them up because we kind of now have kind of figured out an agenda for how to do that.
Yeah, as long as the chairs don't break.
Yeah. Again.
Oh my gosh. that one we did at the shop, man. Like, the place that we rented the chairs from, we were just sitting there, watching the screen, and then all of a sudden, kabooms! The chair just breaks and somebody falls straight in the floor.
Oh no!
Just like randomly. Just
30 minutes later, another person. We were like, oh my gosh! I'm kind of scared to sit down now.
The sky's falling.
Yeah, it was like Squid Games.
Oh my gosh! You're like, don't answer the question wrong. You're going down.
Yeah.
Taking people out one at a time.
It was crazy.
As far as communication to and from IASCA, if people have a question, as far as that goes, who and how do you suggest people get answers as far as that goes? What's the easiest way to contact IASCA and find out, if somebody has a question on something as far as rules goes or categories or how they're fit in places or whatever? What's the protocol there?
Right. So if it's like an overall IASCA thing, like a rule or like finals or something, best thing to do would be to email me at travis@iasca.com. And I say email because, with email, you can flag them and I can go back and look to see which ones that I need to go back to. Sure. Where like social media doesn't, that's a rough one because everybody messages me there. So you might message me and all of a sudden you're like off the screen. So, so I don't know. Yeah. And so, so best thing to do is just to email me. If you have more specific, like to a specific local event, right, then that would be to go who's actually running that event.
Sure.
And every event on the website, listed on the website, will have a contact information for the person who's running that show.
Okay. Cool.
If someone in a certain area wants to hold a show, say they're a shop owner or something like that, and they want to do a contest, how do they go about that?
So the best thing to do is also get a hold of me, and I'll line them up with the right person. Sometimes I'll even be able to get some additional resources set to that show, if it's needed. I know sometimes people will just go to who they think is the local judge. Well, they won't get that help from the main office, which is me, right, if I don't know, certain things about the show. So, probably best thing to do would be to reach out to me, and then I'll get you to the right person. Eventually we are working on revamping the website. And with that, we'll actually list out more of regional directors who would be to get a hold of.
So like the key contact for your area or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Any exciting plans for the future that we don't know about?
Hopefully I get this website done. I have some help now. So
nice.
Yeah, hopefully that'll get done. Yeah, not really anything spectacular. 35th anniversary is done. So now, we celebrate the 36th year, I guess. So,
nice.
Yeah, nothing too crazy. It's just going to hopefully be steady and no surprises this year.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That's a feat in and of itself,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess as far as for the people out there who, because there's always been a large amount of goodwill effort as far as IASCA goes. It's never been tied to one person, an entity. I mean, I would say that there's a large number of people who didn't know who Paul Papadakis was, during that time period or what have you. So I mean, it's one of those things where, I think it's honorable that I'm pretty sure I said this last time we interviewed too, but I mean, it's honorable that you're able to take it on and keep it continued and not, for as much as some people would like to see big swings and big changes, a lot of times they don't. They think they do. They don't. But being able to keep that continuation going and everything else, and that takes a lot of effort. But on the other side, like, I guess how can people be helpful in a helpful way that want to see IASCA continue and grow and everything else, and also not get in the way? Because I know, sometimes for some very well-meaning people, you brought up social media. We'll take to social media, and sometimes that helps, but sometimes it's also not exactly the direct path that we always need. So I mean, from your perspective, directing IASCA and kind of continuing that forward, like if somebody has ideas or wants to help or sees something that can improve or has feedback or what have you, again, is that email you? Is that the best path forward there?
Yeah, usually it is, because that's, email, I'll see everything. I even scan through my spam folder just because I don't want to miss anything through my emails. Yeah, that's usually going to be the best way to get a hold of me. And yeah, just tell me thoughts and we'll see about, having people help or using their ideas. Yeah, we're like usually open to at least listening, right? At least finding out what there is. I'm trying to run IASCA not as like it's mine, right? So I'm not trying to say, okay, this is Travis's organization, right? No, this is IASCA, right? So it's being run as if somebody can take it over in the future and no one would really know. They would just know this is IASCA. This is how it's been. This is the way it's done. Yeah. So, some of it is like, I know people will try to say things and they have good intentions, but sometimes it's like, oh, that's a little bit too personal and too much away from what IASCA's core has been, so.
Right.
Yeah. So, we'll at least listen to people and maybe incorporate something that they're trying to tell us.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It sounds, it's a very, conservative, and I don't mean that politically at all, but a conservative approach as far as, not taking big swings at it, even, and to kind of reiterate on the 24 rules that, I've not been a huge fan of myself, but I will say that it does stick into the historical model of what IASCA is and sticking to, how it's kind of always been done. In a lot of ways, if IASCA had never, in a way, IASCA would be stronger overall. I believe, at least history would say would be stronger overall if it had kept to its roots in those things and not changed for the current trends of things, because we've kind of come full circle in some of those cases. So yeah, it's like I said, it's been a bit jarring for some, I think, in over the past year. But at the same time, it shouldn't be entirely unexpected, just because that is part of, what IASCA is and what it has been, and like you said, will continue to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe some of that context comes from some people who were maybe kind of newer and didn't experience the the IASCA of the early 90s or late 80s and stuff like that. So maybe they just don't realize that kind of how IASCA normally was.
Yeah.
Well, and even even Triple Crown, like I said, up in the past decade has had everything being included and just part of, that was what you did to compete at the top level.
Yeah.
but like Travis said, the participation at that point becomes, quite low. And then, like you said, it's like, okay, well, you're the winner of expert, but what does that actually mean? Because, you have multiple prizes going to multiple first places for the one class. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the people that a lot of time freak out about this, it doesn't even affect them. You know what I mean? Like they're not even in those
that
classes.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Have you seen at the bigger events where, you have that participation level? And I guess, I probably haven't been able to, be as involved at that level on especially at like finals and stuff like that. But I mean, do you feel that it's made the events better by having the SPL and install and that included at those levels, just as far as, spectatorship, participation, that kind of thing? Has there been any, anything really seen there as far as that goes?
We didn't offer the SPL at every event, right? So it was only at a handful of events. A couple times I saw, people getting interested at what was going on, looking over, seeing what's happening. Install, I think, I'm not 100% sure if it really, has built spectatorship from requiring install, but it's kind of creating that building block of just getting these guys, back to forcing them to do it. And then it's like, okay, well now that you have to do it, now everyone's going to kind of expect to see it happen. So, now people can go, okay, is so-and-so going to get judged for install now that it's required? Now I'm going to go check it out, right? Or see him getting judged, because now things are going to get open, right? And I think people are just now kind of realizing that that's really happening.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And as far as like Spona, for example, are you planning on integrating the SPL and install in any way there, as far as, kind of in a way that gets the people participating there? Or what's your kind of plans as far as that goes?
The idea would be to have it there. I don't know how many that will have signed up for those classes.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
It's one of those like, it might only be 2 cars,
right.
Who knows, yeah. So, we're going to try and at least do things that try to explain to the spectators, hey, this is what's going to happen. I don't know exactly how we're going to do that yet, but, that's, kind of as we get closer to the event, how are we going to get that exposure out there?
Yeah, because even if you had something time-wise set up, just that, hey, we're doing this in car audio at 1:00 on Saturday, it might be something that at least some of the people who, because you're bound to have at least, a segment of however many thousands of people go to those events that are like, oh, I used to do car audio in 1987. Like, I'll go check it out. Oh, there's something to check out. Okay, cool. I think you'll at least
it's like there might be a bass head home audio guy. Am I like, SPL? Oh my gosh!
We'll read them out.
Well, being able to explain, what the judging process looks like, which could be a totally foreign thing to attendees for home audio hi-fi type events, because to my knowledge, they don't do anything like that. But other than on the surface, they're just like, this guy just walks around and listens to the cars and just picks which one he likes the best. Like, no, there's a whole process to this. You know what I mean? Like, there's a scorecard and lots of different merits that we're looking for and things like that. So that'd be cool to be able to showcase that.
Yeah, and there's actually both events, both the Axpona and the Florida event, Florida Audio Expo. They both have mentioned that that they would like for us to give like a 30-minute talk of how do we judge. So
that's a good idea.
So whether that actually happens, I don't know, but it's been brought up that, possibly we would do that.
Yeah. Cause I mean, there's actual criteria that goes into it, rather than, just some, DIY audio reviewer, just like, hey, it sounds good,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there's more to it than that,
Yeah.
Well, especially if you could present it as being almost a kind of like the way Eldridge does it, where it's almost like a critical listening theory, approach, where it's like, hey, understanding this has, and Travis, you're data driven as well. Like, this is based on literally, 36 now years of progress and, thousands of score sheets and cars and scenarios and everything else has gone into evolving it to this point where you can take this to not only understand what we're doing, but also apply that to your own critical listening.
Yeah. Cause the, you just don't know how they're listening and stuff like that. Cause, Aaron kind of had alluded to, some of the insight. I've never actually myself been to a home audio show, so I'm pretty excited about this. We're going to be at the Florida Audio Expo, so I'm pretty excited about it since I've never been to one. But it'll be neat for them to see, how we judge it, and and be able to apply some of that to what they do, rather than just listening and deciding, hey, this are good sounding speakers. I mean, like, well, how wide does the sound stage, what's the boundaries, and what number do you put on that? Like what constitutes a 1 or a 15? How do we come up with it?
Yeah.
So that'd be cool to explain to the people, so at least they can have these types of things in mind whenever they listen to, whatever they're listening to.
Yeah.
Well, Travis, thank you for your time. Like I said, I think mainly just trying to get a refresher on what's going on. And again, so people know kind of what to expect coming into 25, and then kind of how they can do better to participate and however else to, make sure things keep going forward. So again, we appreciate, I know it's a lot of thankless work that goes into this thing. And, but we appreciate it, and I know a lot of people out there do as well, even if they don't know who they appreciate. So, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.